All right, so part two of the video, I'm going to finish up the rest of this chart, and I kind of wanted to give myself a little bit more time, mostly because the neck is a little bit more complicated and there's a whole bunch of muscles to write down. So I didn't want to feel like, oh, my video's starting to get too long. I need to just rush through it. So we see all the stuff for the abdomen, the thorax, the perineum. They all are like synergistic groups that are all doing the same thing. The neck kind of becomes a little bit of a weird area. This area becomes super weird. Why does it become super weird? It becomes super weird because a lot of stuff is made in the embryo in the neck, but then because the embryo starts to elongate, that stuff in the neck moves in different areas. What am I talking about? So what I'm talking about is primarily the respiratory system. So let me just do a quick drawing in case you're not familiar with what I would be doing. So remember how we had like our sagittal section of our embryo? So that's our dorsal hollow nerve tube right there. And then let's say we have the beginning of our foregut, our foregut, our midgut, and our hindgut. Sorry, my drawing just went way out of hand right there. That happens a lot. So there's our gut tube, okay? So what you don't quite know just yet is that coming off of the gut tube is going to be a little bulb and a branch, and that bulb and branch right there is going to be the lungs. So as our embryo grows and then as our embryo bends, essentially the lungs come from the cervical area, from the neck area, but then they get pushed down towards the thorax, essentially. And as a result of this, the hypaxial muscles that are kind of surrounding the lungs, which would be like right here, are also going to get pushed downward at the same time. So I'm going to talk about lateral hypaxial muscles first, and then I'm going to go back to the midventral ones. So in this case, in the cervical area, the lateral hypaxial muscles get all discombobulated and rearranged. So there's no exact equivalency here. So we're going to write that right there. And then to make sure that you understand this, I'm going to write diagonally so that it's not in line. So we want to know that the diaphragm, right there, the diaphragm and the scalene muscles, these muscles are the lateral hypaxial muscles in the cervical region, in the neck region. I should probably put that right. Whoa. Sorry. Sometimes my writing pad gets out of control. It's an artist writing pad, like an artist drawing pad, so it's not the high-end one either. You should know your regions by now. You should know that's cervical, all right? So the diaphragm and the scalenes all get pulled with the lungs as our embryo grows. And the diaphragm becomes our main respiratory muscle, and then the scalenes are going to help us do a couple of things. So I'm going to write the actions for these muscles here, and then I'm going to use this whole area up here for my midventral ones and do my actions more specifically. So we're looking at breathing, and we're going to flex the neck, primarily for the scalenes. Okay, the diaphragm is breathing. Your main respiratory muscle is actually your diaphragm, not your intercostals, actually. So make sure you just kind of understand that. You should know that the scalenes attach at rib 1 and rib 2. Remember, I talked about this in class, how you do a deep inhalation. And you see these muscles here, how they are going to contract. Those are the scalenes. The scalene muscles pull up rib 1, they pull up rib 2, and then each subsequent rib pulls up and allows you to increase the size of your thoracic cavity so that you can pull in more air, basically. So we're going to look at the midventral ones, okay? And the one you probably want to know its innervation for is the diaphragm, but again, that comes up again in 2240. We definitely have to know it in 2240 because we're going to talk about breathing, all right? Sorry, my brain just froze for a minute there. we're going to do mid-ventral muscles, and I'm just going to write them all right here, and I'm going to kind of divide them a little bit. I was trying to think about how to do this a little bit differently than when I did it in office hours. So I think I'm gonna try to draw a picture for you guys right here. So the mid-ventral muscles in the neck area are going to have their names based on attachments. And sure, that's sort of a thyroid cartilage that's not bad. It doesn't look that great, but it'll get me through. And then I'm gonna put like my hyoid bone kind of right here-ish. And I can't draw all of them because of certain things. But I'll label them too. And then you're gonna have your manubrium, which essentially is gonna be like right there. This might be a bad idea, but I'm gonna try it nonetheless. Okay, and then you guys can write some stuff out. So we're gonna see that our in our neck and our tongue area, this should really be neck and tongue area, there are going to be a couple of muscles that go above the hyoid and some that go below the hyoid. So one of those muscles is going to be genioglossus. Genioglossus attaches to the tongue and helps you protract the tongue. Remember, protract means push out. So sticking out your tongue basically is using the genioglossus muscle. Then you're also going to have a geniohyoid muscle. So the geniohyoid muscle is going to attach here at the top of the hyoid and then also to the mandible. And this is going to help you elevate the hyoid. So those are all suprahyoid muscles. Okay, they go above the hyoid. Then we're going to have infrahyoid muscles. And so I'm going to kind of do this and say my infrahyoid muscles, they all are going to help me depress my hyoid. Sorry, I don't have enough room in my chart. I probably could have moved a couple lines over a little bit, but I didn't really test this out before I did this. So you're either going to depress the hyoid or the larynx. Remember, the larynx is this tube right here, mostly this tube up here. Like as you push on it, your voice sounds weird because it's also helping you with making noises in terms of our voice. So we're either going to depress our hyoid and bring it downward, or we usually depress the larynx. Sometimes you can elevate the larynx, just kind of ignore that though. So these muscles are going to be named after, most of them are going to be named after the things that they attach to. So I'm going to try to kind of draw them slightly different colors. One, you'll have one muscle over here that kind of goes in that direction towards the scapula. This is omohyoid. And then you'll have another muscle that's right next to omohyoid that's going to go from the hyoid bone like that. And it's going to cover the larynx and it's going to go to the sternum. And this is sternohyoid. Ooh, sorry about my really small. That's sternohyoid. Okay, I'll try to rewrite it for you guys. Sternohyoid. I still didn't get it all in. And then deep to sternohyoid are a couple of additional muscles. One of those muscles basically goes to from the bottom of the larynx here to the thyroid cartilage. This muscle is called Whoa, my brain stopped. Sternothyroid. Sternothyroid. And then the one that's above that muscle, ooh, let me pick a different color than blue. I'll just go with red. There's a tinier muscle that goes like above that, and you just have to, my drawing is not to scale, not at all. The sternum would be a lot farther down. The hyoid is like up in here, basically. Okay. So this is called thyrohyoid. And Let me label it in a darker color. Thyrohyoid. Okay, thyrohyoid. Whoa. Even I can't read what I wrote. So since I can't read what I wrote, I might as well just rewrite it. Thyrohyoid. Thyrohyoid. Okay. So remember, all of these ones are our infrahyoid muscles, and they help us depress our hyoid or our larynx. Now, thyrohyoid is a little bit weird because it helps us elevate our larynx, but also depress our hyoid bone at the same time. It kind of causes the larynx to bulge out a little bit. Let me just check my chart to double check this. Yes, I drew everything that I was supposed to draw for you guys. I'm pretty sure that's everything. Yep, that's it. So that makes up your nice little like chart of all your equivalencies, and then also helps you think about what are the actions of some of these muscles, since many of them are kind of synergists. Or you can at least think about, maybe you don't want to try to memorize everything, you want to pay attention to some of the more important details. Okay, in the last little bit here, what we should do is we should continue doing our cross section and making sure we understand all the stuff in our basic cross section. So in the last video, I did this and I put my epaxial muscles. Just like that. Now you should be able to draw the basic cross section, draw all of the stuff for the nervous system, and we're just going to add our hypaxial muscles on here as well. And it should be pretty easy. Now, what I'm going to do is, some people had a really hard time with this whole above and below the umbilicus stuff. It's maybe not as important to know that, but if you're like, oh, I got to know this for my test and I just didn't understand it, then I'm going to draw it here too. And basically over on this side, I'm going to draw one thing, and this side I'm going to draw the other thing. So over here, I'm going to draw below the umbilicus. And over here, I'm going to do above the umbilicus. And the point of this is so that you see how the lateral hypaxial muscles have like fused in different, have fused, okay? But I know you guys have a really hard time actually seeing this. So I'm going to draw it out. So we're going to see that we have our first layer. Actually, this is not so easy to draw with my drawing pad, okay? So you're going to have to give me a little bit of leeway with my drawing. So we're going to do one layer, we're going to do two layers, and then we're going to have our ventral ramus, and then we're going to have our third layer, just like that. And since this is going to be below the umbilicus, I have to draw this one more time. I'm sorry, you guys. What I need to do is draw my rectus abdominis first. So here's my rectus abdominis, here's my other rectus abdominis. And since this is below the umbilicus, I actually need to make sure that I have one, I have two, and I have three layers that are all lined up together. And then I'm going to go backwards. And it's not going to be perfect. Your drawing's not going to be perfect either. Maybe it'll be a little bit better than mine. And then on the other side, I just didn't draw my nerve, but I'm going to have like these layers. Whoops, that's a little bit too close to rectus abdominis, in slightly different layering. You can kind of see how they're not all at the same exact place. And then I'm just going to bring them back just like that. It's actually a lot easier if that nerve's not right there. Okay. So you should be able to identify and label this one, identify and label this one, identify and label that, identify and label that. And then of course you should be able to label those ones. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to see if you can do it on your own. I'm just going to simply explain this above and below the umbilicus thing, and I'm going to use like blue as my connective tissue, as my epimysium. So remember, the epimysium covers each skeletal muscle, and when it does, for the lateral hypaxial muscles, what we see is that above the umbilicus, the epimysium for this outer layer, which is external oblique, goes above rectus abdominis. The middle layer, which is internal oblique, right, is going to split and go in front and behind rectus abdominis. And then transversus abdominis, which is this deepest layer, goes back behind like that. So you see connective tissue in front of rectus abdominis and behind rectus abdominis above the umbilicus. Below the umbilicus, what's going to happen is all of 3 of these epimysium layers merge together, and they only go above the above rectus abdominis. So this is probably why it's hard to get that last pack in your 8-pack, because that's all the way down near the pubic area, and there's a really thick connective tissue sheet that's going to cover it. Versus higher up, like near the ribs, you only have like partial connective tissue sheet covering, so it's probably easier for you to work out that muscle and see those interdigitations a little bit better. Okay, what's the other implication for this is it's very easy to poke through rectus abdominis below the umbilicus and just basically go right into the organs. The only thing that is now back behind rectus abdominis is this layer right here. This layer is part of this part of the somatic mesoderm, which makes something called the parietal peritoneum, which we learn in 2240. And it's a very, 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 very thin epithelial sheet that's, you can poke right through it like easily, basically. So here at the end, I hope what you guys got out of these 2 videos for the hypaxial muscles is you saw all the equivalents in a nice, like, easy to digest like chart that you can make yourself, that you can make during the test and think about for your test, and see how the only really weird area is the neck area, and also help you understand that when you look at material and you study material, the greatest thing to your advantage is organizing that material through charts or diagrams or drawings, especially in a class like A&P. It's probably the single greatest thing that I use to help me with this material. You're never going to be able to memorize all of it. So you want to combine it together in ways that is understandable and easy to recall. You'll have it for a lifetime, actually, as opposed to just for your test. So I hope all of this stuff helps you as well prepare for your exam.